It's that time of year again. The last wave of LEGO Star Wars sets just got released a few weeks ago, so that means it's time to rank every single LEGO Star Wars set that was released this year in 2024. And just so you know, I'm not going to be including polybags or those little magazine gift things. Anyways, I have a total of 29 separate sets to get through, so I don't want to waste any time. Starting off at the 29th spot, this one is kind of a no-brainer for being the worst set this year. It's 75384, the Crimson Firehawk. This was the only 4+ set released this year, and I'm pretty sure it's safe to assume that nobody really cares about 4+ sets, and if you've been watching this channel for a while, you definitely know that I don't care about them at all. I didn't even get this set or review it, and I won't be getting this set. It's just overpriced and boring, and honestly, I don't think 4+ sets should exist. Kids this age could easily be getting battle packs or microfighters. There's just no reason for sets like this to exist, in my opinion. Anyways though, moving on to the number 28 spot, I have another set that nobody really cares about, that being 75392 Creative Play Droid Builder. And honestly, yes, I'm probably being pretty biased against this set. It's not terrible actually, and the droids do look pretty cool for the most part. I mean, they're good little display builds, but I'm in the same boat as everyone else when it comes to the fact that this set was just not needed. We already have so many buildable astromech droids at this point that we just did not need anymore, and because of that, this set is just gonna be easily forgotten about and nobody's buying it. And honestly, I think that LEGO knew nobody was gonna buy this set, and that's why they put in the 25th anniversary Leia minifigure. They're probably like, huh, nobody in the community wants this set at all, so let's put the last 25th anniversary figure in this set to try to get people to buy it. And honestly, I still don't think that's even working, because Leia's probably the worst 25th anniversary figure, and this set is just overpriced and unneeded. On a lighter note though, up next at the 27th spot, I have 75391 Captain Rex Y-Wing Microfighter. So far this year, this set has been pretty popular, and when it first released, it was very controversial, had a lot of people talking for reasons I'm not going to get into again, and it's a cool set with a decent Captain Rex minifigure. Decent is kind of generous, and the reason I say that is because, as you guys know, there are a few problems with this figure, like a printed waist cape, the pauldron being too big, and the ammo pouch being too big. But besides those issues with the figure itself, there's really nothing wrong with this set. I just put it towards the back of the list because at the end of the day, it's just a microfighter. It's not much compared to the other sets that are to come. Next up at the 26th spot, this one's probably going to be pretty controversial for being higher than Rex's microfighter, but it's actually 75390 Luke Skywalker's X-Wing mech. And you know, I might sound crazy, but I actually think the mechs are pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. And in all honesty, I think this one is the best. The reason I like it so much is because the wings on the back remind me of the wings on Optimus Prime. I don't know what they're called, but they look really awesome in Transformers, so it makes me think this mech looks awesome. Again, I like the mechs, and honestly, I like them more than some microfighters. But still, of course, it's at the back of the list because at the end of the day, it's not much. Up next at the 25th spot, I have 75378 Bark Speeder Escape. When this set released, it was pretty hyped up because of that Keller and Beck minifigure, but besides that, this set really isn't much. I also think it's a bit overpriced. The design of the speeder is kind of cool, although it's unfortunately very oversized, so it's just not super appealing. Really, the main highlight of this set is just Keller and Beck, and the fact that you get two 501st troopers, I guess. Moving on to the 24th spot, I have 75385 Ahsoka Tano's Duel on Peridia. This is the first of many sets on this list that I wish I could put higher, but I'm not because they're so overpriced. I actually think this set is pretty cool. The build is interesting to say the least. I mean, at face value, it's not much, just a gray slab with some pillars, but there's some really cool play features in there where the minifigures can sort of spin around, and there's another one where Ezra can kind of jump off the back. And also, I think the pillars look really cool. It's a nice little display piece, although it's $55, which in my head is absolutely insane for this set. I think like 45 max would have been perfect for this thing, but 55, I mean, like, come on, LEGO, there's no reason for that. Oh, I also forgot to mention it's got a pretty good minifigure lineup, the main highlight being Thrawn, which is great and all. Thrawn is a great figure in this set. Again, it's just too overpriced, so I'm not putting it any higher. And speaking of overpriced, next up at the 23rd spot, I have 75380 Mos Espa Pod Race Diorama. And this is a set that I really wish I could put higher up on the list because I like this set a lot. The build is really nice. The terrain and rockwork looks great, and the arch is awesome. It gives it such a great aesthetic, but like Duel on Peridia, it's overpriced. This set is $80 US, which is insane. I don't think this thing should have been any more than 65, maybe 70. Actually, no, 70 is too high too. 65, no more than that. But $80 is just absolutely wild. I mean, every time I look at the retail price for this set, I still get surprised that it's that high. And I really wish it wasn't, because if it was actually a reasonable price, $65, I would put it way higher up on this list. But 80, no, I just can't. And the trend of overpriced sets continues. On to the 22nd spot, I have another $80 set, that being 75396 Desert Skiff and Sarlacc Pit. This is yet another set with really incredible builds that I wish I could put higher up on the list, but it's just too overpriced. The Sarlacc Pit is actually crazy. I mean, when I built this thing, X-Wing. I was super impressed by it. It's such a good looking model. The Desert Skiff is awesome too, and even the minifigure lineup is for the most part pretty solid. Obviously, Boba Fett is the episode 5 version, not the episode 6 version, which is disappointing. I also wish it maybe would have had a Weequay guard, but overall it's a very decent build. Like, there you get a lot of good stuff in this set, but like the Mos Espa Pod Race, it's $80, and I think it shouldn't be any more than 65 or 60. Although I do have to say, if you don't have this set yet and you find it on sale for under $70, I would recommend it to you. Anyways, moving on to the 21st spot, I have 75393 TIE Fighter and X-Wing mashup. It's honestly really hard for me to decide how I feel about this set, and that's because, well, the X-Wing is really good. It's one of the best playset X-Wings LEGO has ever made. They did a great job on it. The shaping is pretty much perfect, which really surprised me when I built it, but the TIE Fighter is downright awful. It's arguably the ugliest TIE Fighter LEGO has ever made, and on top of that, the figures aren't really much either. They're just some characters from Rebuild the Galaxy, the only notable ones really just being the TIE Fighter pilot and the X-Wing pilot. But again, it's just hard to decide how I feel about this set, so I kept it towards the back of the list. I didn't want to put it too far to the back because, again, I really like that X-Wing. I think it's a great build, but man, that TIE Fighter is hideous. Now making our way into the top 20, at the 20th spot, I have 75386 Paz Vizsla and Moff Gideon Battle. This is another set that was very popular and hyped up when it first initially released back in June, and that's literally just because of the figures, which they did a great job on. Obviously, the main highlights being Moff Gideon and Paz Vizsla. This is the first time they've ever made Moff Gideon, and they did a great job on him. It's a great figure, and the fact that they're both in a cheaper $40 set is really nice. Although one thing that really annoys me about this set is the Praetorian Guards. One is that they don't have waist capes or pauldrons or anything to make them look like how they do in the show, and two, because there's not 3 of them, there's only 2. They included the 3rd one in the advent calendar, which I just think is kind of ridiculous. It should have been in this set because there's 3 of them in the scene, so that reason alone is kind of why I kept it towards the back, just because it really annoys me that they didn't put 3 Praetorian Guards. But again, Moff Gideon and Paz Vizsla look wonderful. Next up at the 19th spot, I have a set that just released, that being 40755 Imperial Dropship versus Rebel Scout Speeder. And if you watch my review, you know for the most part I like this set. I think I gave it like an 8 out of 10, maybe an 8.5, but for the price point of $40, there's just a few things that are left to be desired. The most notable one is obviously a Shadow Trooper for the dropship. This is the first dropship they made that didn't include one. I get that they were trying to just add 3 Rebel Troopers and 3 Stormtroopers, but it would have just been nice if one of the Stormtroopers was replaced with a Shadow Trooper, and also $40 just feels like too much for this. Although on the bright side, and the reason I put it in the top 20 is because that Rebel Scout Speeder is one of the best Battle Pack builds, if not the best Battle Pack build they've ever given us. I think it's great. I think it carries this set, and that's why I put it at the 19th spot, but not any higher. Next up, I have another set that just released in October, that being 40730 Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. And it was honestly kind of hard to figure out how to rank this set. I almost just left it off the list, but a lot of people like it, so I wanted to include it. If you didn't know, it was the gift of purchase with the UCS sail barge, meaning you got it for free if you bought the sail barge. But apparently there is a super limited supply of these, and not many people were able to get one, and I didn't really look into the drama that much, but I was able to get one, thankfully. But that aside, it is a great looking build. I mean, it resembles a lightsaber. It's pretty surprisingly detailed for how small it is, which I like. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's really just not much, so I couldn't put it that high. But a lot of people do like it. A lot of people are talking about this set right now, so I had to give it a decent placement. Next up at the 18th spot, I have what was arguably the most hyped up set this summer, and in my opinion is kind of overrated, that being 75388 Jedi Bob's Starfighter. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's cool. I love how they brought Jedi Bob back for Rebuild the Galaxy and then put him into a set for the first time in 22 years, but I just think it's kind of overrated, and honestly, Jedi Bob in general is just a little bit overrated in the community. I know I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for that, but it's how I feel. Although on the bright side, I do really like the Starfighter in this set. That's why I put it at the 18th spot. It really resembles Anakin's Jedi Starfighter from 2015, and I love that set. I also love the colorway. The red and white looks great. It makes it pop in your collection. So again, I like the Starfighter, but you guys are hyping at the figure lineup way too much. Up next, at the 16th spot, I have 75383 Darth Maul's Sith Infiltrator. I'm not gonna lie, back in May when I first got this set, when it released, I didn't really like it that much, but over the year, it's definitely grown on me quite a bit actually. Now, in no way is the build perfect. There's still that problem where the middle area is way too bulky and not as sleek and smooth as it needs to be, but still, I do think that at the beginning of the year, I was sleeping on this build quite a bit because it does look pretty good on display, especially if you have some sort of display stand for it. Although my main problem with it is just the minifigure lineup. I mean, this set is $70 and there's definitely some more minifigures they could have included. The first two that come to mind are obviously Captain Panaka and Padme, which were in the 2011 Sith Infiltrator, I believe. So again, I like the build, but for $70, the figure lineup is just kind of a ripoff, so that's why I didn't put it any higher. Moving on to the 15th spot, I have 75373 Ambush on Mandalore Battle Pack. pack. This was released alongside the Mandalorian bunker set that I just talked about with Paz Vizsla and Moff Gideon, and compared to its counterpart, this set is pretty much perfect. And I say pretty much because I do have a problem with those helmets on the Super Commandos or Imperial Commandos, whatever they're called. I think the printing on their helmets is not as sharp and crisp as it needs to be, but other than that, this is a really solid set. It's got an awesome play feature where you can attach one of the figures to this clear transparent piece and make it look like it's actually flying, as you can see in these pictures here, which makes for awesome display. And on top of that, it's just a cheap way to get some cool figures. Up next at the 14th spot, I have what was one of the most, well, really the most hyped up set that was released this year back in March, that being 75387 boarding the Tantive 4. And for the most part, this set is awesome. I mean, you get 7 figures for $55, which is kind of crazy considering the fact that there's $100 sets that only have 4 figures, so seeing 7 for $55 is pretty rare. Although I don't think the build really holds up for $55, so I know I was just praising the minifigure lineup, but I think it maybe should have been a bit cheaper. 45 or 50 would have been better for the build we're getting. I mean, don't get me wrong, the build itself is great. It's very detailed. There's a lot of awesome play features in it, like a sliding door and some triggers to make the figures fly off and everything. And it's a great little display piece where you can set up the opening scene of A New Hope, but it just overall feels a bit small for $55. Oh, and obviously the elephant in the room with this set is that 25th Anniversary 5's minifigure, which a lot of people like. I personally think it could have been way better. I don't like the printed waist cape, and I don't like the shoulder pauldron not being the right shape, and also the helmet print is not accurate. But I mean, to each their own, I guess. A lot of people like this figure. Up next at the 13th spot, I have 75377 Invisible Hand. Just like the Tantive 4 hallway, this was another set that was very hyped up when it initially released, and it's still very popular. And that's because as of now, it's the only prequel mini scale set we have. There are more coming next year, but right now it's the only prequel one we have. And also, it was the first time that LEGO in some form made the Invisible Hand after us asking for it for so long, like the past 10 years literally. And I mean, honestly, I really don't have any complaints with this build. LEGO did a pretty much perfect job. It's a great display piece, and it's also the cheapest mini scale set LEGO has made at only $50. Although the reason I didn't put it any higher is because it's just not super appealing to me. I mean, again, LEGO did a great job. It looks as good as it needs to. I just think there's other sets, especially mini scale sets, that look better than it. And one of them is what's next up at the 12th spot, and this is definitely going to be very controversial for being higher than the Invisible Hand, but it's 75376, the Tantive 4. Now, this is going to sound a bit hypocritical, but in terms of problems, I mean, really the Invisible Hand doesn't have any, and this set does because this set is overpriced at $80. Although I'm excusing that and putting it one spot higher than the Invisible Hand just because I like the build better. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe I simply just like the design of the Tantive 4 better than the Invisible Hand, but I just think this set looks a bit cooler. It still costs $10 more than it needs to, but again, in just terms of just display and looks alone, I think this just looks better. Anyways though, up next at the 11th spot, I have an awesome set, that being 75381 Droideka. This is an absolutely gorgeous model that in my eyes is pretty much perfect. I honestly don't think LEGO could have done any better on this. It's an awesome display piece. It captures the sort of essence of a Droideka so well, and then of course, like Droidekas are supposed to do, it can roll up into a ball. Now, the actual Droideka minifigure that sits on the display stand is a different story, because I'm pretty sure all of us can agree it's pretty ugly, but thankfully it's not really what matters. What matters is the actual buildable Droideka itself, and it looks great. Anyways though, making our way into the top 10, at the number 10 spot, I have one of the most fan-favorited sets this year, that being 75379 R2-D2. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of buildable astromechs, but I can't deny that this set does look pretty good, and it's definitely a fan favorite. A lot of people like this. It's such a great display piece, and there's all these extensions being his arms that you can add on that just make for more displayability options. And on top of that, you get the 25th anniversary Darth Malak minifigure, which in my opinion is one of the best, if not the best, 25th anniversary figure. Although one thing that really kind of throws me off about this set is the eye on his head. I don't know what it is. I might sound kind of crazy, but just something about his black eye on the head seems a bit off. I can't really put my finger on it. Maybe the eye is too big, or maybe the blue triangle piece underneath just kind of throws off the look, although I'm probably the only person that thinks that, so the set overall is great. And also, it's only $100. You get this awesome model and Darth Malak. I mean, what's there not to like? Up next at the number 9 spot, this is probably going to be super controversial for being in the top 10, but I actually have 75374, the Onyx Cinder. Now, I know a lot of people just look over this set and don't care about it at all because it's from the Skeleton Crew, a show that hasn't even released yet, and also Disney's recent track record with new shows just hasn't been very good, so a set off a new show is just not very exciting to most people. Although when I got this set and I built it, I really enjoyed this model. First of all, it just looks really wonky and cool, which I like because it stands out compared to most other Star Wars vehicles, and it's got some awesome play features, the main one being being the engines where they can go from parallel to vertical. I just think it's a really fun function. There's also a bunch of other fun little things here and there. It's even got a pretty fleshed out interior. It's kind of crammed, but there's a lot of detail in there, which I like. Again, not many people care about this set, and a lot of people have already probably forgotten about it, but I like it, and when I built it, I really enjoyed it, so I wanted to put it in the top 10. Up next, at the number 8 spot, I have one of the only Trade Federation sets released this year for episode 1, that being 40686 Trade Federation Troop Carrier. If you somehow don't know, this was the 25th anniversary Phantom Menace GWP back in May, so just like the lightsaber GWP I talked about earlier, if you spent a certain amount of money, you would get this for free, which at the time was a bit controversial, and I still don't think this was the greatest option for a GWP because this set is just so good. I think it would have just worked best as like a $25 or $30 set, so it kind of lands in this area where it's like the best and worst GWP LEGO has ever given us because it's such a great build that would work amazing as a cheap set, but there was a massive like $200 threshold to be able to get this. Although drama aside, I love this thing. The build is a throwback to the original droid carrier from 2001, I believe, and it looks so awesome. It's super retro, super nostalgic, and such a great little display piece. And honestly, I like this thing so much that if it wasn't a GWP and was just a normal set, I would probably put it higher on the list. Anyways though, up next at the number 7 spot, I have probably the most hyped up and fan-favorited set released this year, that being 75372 Clone Trooper and Battle Droid Battle Pack. And as you guys know, this is one of, if not the best army builder LEGO has ever given us. For only $30, you basically get 2 battle packs in one, and if you don't know, battle packs are $20 on their own, so theoretically this should be $40, but no, it's $10 less at $30, which is awesome. It also comes with new Super Battle Droids, new Phase 2 clone grunts, and a few awesome builds, the main one being that Tri-Droid, which I think looks really cool, especially for a battle pack build, which usually aren't supposed to be much. And I know most of you guys would probably put this set in the top 3, maybe even at the number 1 spot, which is completely valid, but we're just at the point of the list now where all these sets are pretty much great, so I just have to keep this one at the number 7 spot. Up next at the number 6 spot, this one might be a bit surprising for not being in the top 5, but it's 75397 Jabba's Sail Barge. This is the UCS sail barge that we had been waiting on for literally so long. Talk of this set had been going around for like 2 or 3 years, and now it's finally here, and it's really good because it's a UCS set. I mean, UCS sets are always usually really good, but to me at least, I don't personally think it's up to UCS standards, and that's why I didn't put it higher. For one, the minifigure lineup is lacking. First of all, there's not enough minifigures to even fill up the sail barge. This is a massive $500 set. I think it should have at least 15. And second, most of them just aren't as detailed as they need to be for a set of this status. I mean, it's $500. You're supposed to expect the best of the best when it comes to LEGO, but no, these are just basic minifigures that you would find in cheap playsets. Actually, probably worse than figures you would find in cheap playsets, which I don't like. When talking about the build though, which is mainly what UCS sets are supposed to be about, they did a great job for the most part. I think the middle area is a bit bland. There could definitely be some more details there. The back and the front look great, but the middle area is just, again, a bit bland. There could be more going on. Although from afar, the build looks great. It's also got a great interior and a great deck with lots of functionality and details up there. But my main complaints with it and why I'm not putting it higher up is one, what I just said about the middle area not being as detailed as it should be, and two, the minifigures are just not up to UCS standards. And for $500, I think that's pretty ridiculous. But like at the same time, it's a UCS set and it's gonna look good compared to playsets either way. It's kind of hard to rank these things in lists like this because they're obviously held to their own standard, which is way above everything else. So in some people's minds, it's like, oh, UCS sets are automatically the best. And in other people's minds like me, it's like, oh, they're held to a higher standard. And if they don't meet that standard, they're gonna be worse than the other sets. So I don't know. But I felt like the number 6 spot is pretty valid. Anyways though, making our way into the top 5 at the number 5 spot, I have the most bizarre LEGO Star Wars set ever made, that being 75389, the Dark Falcon. And I think this thing is freaking awesome. I love this set. First of all, the minifigure lineup, absolutely legendary. You literally get Darth Jar Jar, a white Darth Vader, an evil C-3PO, an evil Rey, and some others. I mean, this set has been out for almost 3 months at this point, and I still can't believe this even exists. And then on top of that, the Falcon build itself is actually really good. It's pretty much identical to the 2019 Rise of Skywalker Falcon. However, obviously, it's in black and red, and let me tell you, that colorway of the dark red with the black just looks so good. It's also got an awesome, detailed, fleshed out interior with so many little features and Easter eggs hidden throughout. I mean, this set is definitely one for the books, and when I started making this list, I knew this had to be in the top 5. Up next at the number 4 spot, I have the better UCS set that released this year, that being 75382 TIE Interceptor. And let me tell you, this set is absolutely gorgeous. This is one of the best display pieces LEGO has ever given us, and that's mainly due to the angle that it's sits on the stand at. It faces at probably about a 30-degree angle upwards, and its dagger-shaped wings give it such an awesome presence and look in your collection. And I mean, it's a TIE Interceptor, it's gonna look pretty awesome either way just because their design is so aggressive looking. Now there are a few things that I think could be better on it. One is the actual stand, specifically around the plaque where the figure and the 25th anniversary brick sits, and that's just because it looks a bit cluttered down there. When I display this set, I just take everything off the stand because it looks cleaner. I also think the cockpit could be a bit better. I know LEGO kind of went out on a limb to make this complex cockpit design, and I definitely see what they were trying, and they did do a good job for the most part, although I do think it just looks a bit bulky and lumpy in some areas, and it could be a bit better. But other than those two small complaints, this is a great set and one of the best $200 UCS sets they've given us. Anyways though, moving on to the number 3 spot, I have a set that most of you guys were probably not expecting to see in the top 3, and that's actually 75398 C3PO. And let me tell you, I was absolutely blown away when I built this thing. First of all, it was a super fun build. I thought it was going to be tedious because it's large and highly detailed with lots of small pieces, but no, I had a really fun time putting this together. And also there's so many awesome techniques used to be able to pull off C3PO's sort of stature and look. I mean, the way they were able to pull off how he stands on the base or sort of sand area, whatever you want to call it, is really impressive. His feet sort of angle outwards, and he also leans forward to have that sort of perked up stature that C3PO has. It's just really impressive, and I wasn't expecting all these little subtle details when I first built this set. Now yes, the elephant in the room with this set is his face. His eyes and mouth don't look the greatest, but I mean honestly that's borderline excusable just because faces are really hard to make with LEGO pieces with these buildable characters. So in my eyes it's not that big of a deal because the rest of him and everything I just mentioned about his body and his stature and all of that is really awesome and makes for an awesome display piece, and I think it's worthy of the top 3. Anyways though, up next at the number 2 spot, I have 75375 Millennium Falcon. Just like the C3PO, when I first built this set, I was blown away. There's an insane amount of detail as well as a lot of awesome techniques used throughout the build that just made the building process very fun and enjoyable. I can't really do this set justice by just talking about it and showing pictures. You just have to see it in person because it's really good. Now unfortunately, I do think it's a bit overpriced at $85. It's not as overpriced as some of the other sets on this list, especially like the Mos Espa Pod Race or the Desert Skiff, but it is maybe $5 or $10 overpriced, and because of that, you could say I'm a bit generous by putting it at the 2nd spot, but man, the build is just so good, I couldn't help myself. Anyways though, now finally making our way to the number 1 spot, there's only one set left, and I'm pretty sure when you guys clicked on this video, you probably had a good idea that this was going to be at number 1, and it's of course 75394 Imperial Star Destroyer. When this thing first got announced, I was very skeptical about it because it's significantly smaller than the other 2 Plisco Star Destroyers we've gotten. And while yes, that is unfortunate, I wish it was a bit bigger. The set retails for $160, and the Dark Falcon I just talked about retails for $180. And I've said this before, but honestly, I wish this was the $180 set just so it could be a bit bigger and the Falcon was the $160 set. But besides that small complaint of it being a little bit too small, this set is perfect. The detail on it is literally insane. I was so blown away by how highly detailed this is just for a playset. It's by far the most accurate Star Destroyer LEGO has ever made. It's not even close. And then on top of that, you get the 25th anniversary Cal Kestis minifigure, which a lot of people have been asking for a very long time. Now he doesn't have his poncho, which is pretty disappointing. I don't really see a reason as to why they left that out, although it's just cool to have this figure in some form despite he's not as good as he could be. And then again, like I said, the Star Destroyer build just blew me away. I mean, I was skeptical, but when I built it, I was like, man, this thing is actually pretty much perfect. It's just a bit too small, although I still think it's the best set that was released this year just because it's a Star Destroyer and Star Destroyers are awesome, and it's, again, for the millionth time, extremely detailed. Anyways guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Let me know what you think about this list down in the comments below. Let me know what your favorite Star Wars set from 2024 was and what Star Wars sets in 2025 you're looking forward to. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you see on the screen right now.